Good morning, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing the free-to-play game in the Capcom Arcade Stadium collection for the Nintendo Switch, which is called 1943 Battle for Midway. What you see is pretty much what you get. It's a top-down shooter from 1987, where you control the ship during a 1943 war, I guess, and you collect different power-ups to affect what kind of missiles you're shooting the opposing ships with. You can get a spread shot, a pop gun shooter where it's kinda like this, except it's slower, or you can get missile shells which have less range but are more powerful. The final option is that you can get a bunch of thick military type shells that don't have much range, but they're also the most powerful weapon you have. You can choose between slowly firing or rapid fire, and the game doesn't really penalize you for rapid firing, to my knowledge, although it is slightly frustrating that your life gauge will gradually deplete even if you're not being hit by the enemies. So thankfully there are power-ups to increase your life, so you'll definitely want to pick those up on occasion. But the problem is that the power-ups will change depending on how much you shoot them. So I think that might have been Capcom's way of preventing players from spamming the auto-fire, because it's like, oh, if you keep shooting the power-up, it might change to that wimpy P-gun instead of a health pickup. So you'll definitely want to stop and think. Thankfully, this game does a great job of immersing you into the amount of damage you're doing to the enemy fleet as opposed to a whole bunch of life bars, by doing a really good job of indicating that parts of the ships that you're attacking are taking damage. So rather than saying this boss has 76 heart points left, like say a Fire Emblem game would, you gradually keep seeing the guns smoking and going up in flames. And you even get a very satisfying end scene after you complete the mission of your ship flying toward the screen in an almost stereoscopic 3D approach, and it'll show an image of the ship going up in flames. So visual satisfaction is very much appreciated here, as opposed to feeling like you're just playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons but with airplanes. Now, because this is on Capcom Arcade Stadium, there are a lot of features that help to modernize the experience and also make it more convenient, not only for Switch owners, but for people that don't have an arcade cabinet. For starters, you have unlimited quarters, although if you still like the thrill of putting in a quarter and seeing the credits number go up, you just press in on the right stick to insert quarters. You can only insert 9 at a time, but that never really was a problem to me, as the game gives you unlimited continues. And it really helps, because these arcadey style shooters get really hard if you don't mitigate the difficulty. Speaking of which, you can change between 16 difficulty levels on this game alone, and you can even choose the game's speed. Now, regarding the speed, this is a really convenient feature that, again, why is this not in other games? Because you can actually change the speed mid-game without going into the pause menu. Now, you have to turn this on in the adjust your controls menu, so that's a little bit cumbersome. But the fact remains that I chose it so that the L and ZL buttons would choose between making the speed go faster or slower on the fly. So say you want the game to go at normal speed most of the time, but then you want to speed up past the here's how many points you got screen, and then slow down when you get to a boss battle, you can do that. You can also rewind time whenever you want if you get a game over, which I abused quite a lot, and I'm not ashamed to show it in this footage because I stink at these kinds of games. So overall, I really like the amount of modern touches this has. It does stink that the default view is a zoomed out view of the arcade cabinet, so people that have presbyopia, aka needing reading glasses, might be initially frustrated, but with enough tinkering, I managed to get this very nice full screen view. It may seem like the game is a bit stretched at first, but it's really hard to go back to the default after this. However, if you don't like playing games in full screen, there are plenty of options to customize the border, such as having a Capcom logo, having the ugly black one that Super Mario 3D All-Stars seems to really love, or even having the arcade cabinet itself as the background, and being able to use the right stick to tilt to see what other games are playing on the side of the cabinet as if you were in a real arcade. There's also manuals for the game. You can adjust you can adjust the online leaderboards, there's achievements, and overall it feels like a great collection, albeit not a collection of games I particularly want to play. But if the games that you have to pay for end up having the same levels of quality customization that I've seen in this one game, I think it might be worth it to spend the money to buy the remaining games in the collection. It seemed like there were a lot when I was scrolling through. I personally think I got my money's worth with 1943, aka not paying anything at all because I got it for free. And I think for a free game, there's a lot of quality touches in a 1983 game that I really appreciate, such as having different names for the bosses to give a fake sense of progression, with the lack of life bars by just showing physical damage on the planes instead, giving a variety of shooting options and fairly nice graphics for its time. The music also sounds like it's from like a slower paced Sonic the Hedgehog game, which added a nice bit of nostalgia. The only true critique I can think of as far as preserving this game is I kind of wish you could turn off the sound effects, because you can turn off the sound effects and music for the menus, but you can't do it for the game itself. So that feels like a really weird oversight. Maybe Capcom was worried that people doing a bunch of options would ruin the authenticity of the arcade experience. But I still think, like with all the other ways you can customize the game, why not with the music? That being said, this is free, so I think it's definitely worth picking up on the eShop, especially with all the options to change the difficulty, speed, and rewinding. Players of all skills that like arcadey style 2D shooters, especially if they're fans of Galaga or Space Invaders, ought to really like this. Just definitely give some thought and some research if you want to purchase the other games in the collection. So with that, thank you very much for watching. If I left anything out, or if you have any comments, questions, concerns, or critiques, please let me know down below in the comment section. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and Nintendo, take a hint from this the next time you make an All-Stars collection. Bye!